Pin is a stat that used to be much better in Zenless early beta versions, even surpassing damage bonus at times. But with its nerfs upon the game's release, many believe the stat is no longer that great, and a character like Rina, who gives this stat, the entire team, is also underperforming. But what is the truth? Welcome to my channel. My name is Kate7th, and I'll be your host today. To answer any of these questions, we first need to understand what Pin can truly do, and how does it actually scale. So, let's go over it, shall we? Pin ratio is a form of defense shred in Zzzero, and it scales significantly better in the later stages of the game compared to the early, due to defense shred scaling much better the more defense an enemy has. And in the first few weeks of the game, we were not facing high defense enemies yet, so Pin really didn't feel that impactful, which is one of the many factors why myself and others thought the stat was lackluster. Pin is also a stat where the more you commit to it, the better it becomes, as stacking it will give you a greater outcome overall, but this is very difficult to do right now, since there is only one support that gives Pin to the team, and can allow us to stack more Pin ratio overall. However, Pin is still a generalistic stat for any DPS agent in the game, and this is where I believe Pin is extremely underrated as a stat. If we were to go and look at Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail, there isn't a stat in these games that works with every single damage dealer, regardless of their innate scaling within their kit. And this is where the stat Pin and Zzzero, in my opinion, is the best quality of life change hoyoverse has done for their characters. This is the only stat where it does not matter if a DPS agent scales on attack, HP, defense, impact, or anomaly scaling, Pin will still work for you. On my second personal account for Zzzero, my two carries are Ellen Jo and Piper Will, and unfortunately I have had terrible drive disc RNG when it comes to attaining an elemental 5th slot, but yet I have still managed to clear all the content in the game with full clears, while using a Pin ratio on my 5th slot for both my DPS. And no, I do not own Rina on this account, but even without Rina, Pin was able to get the job done for me extremely well, and this is simply due to Pin being the most universal stat for any DPS agent, and will continue to be the most universal even when they release non-attack scaling DPS agents in the future as well. And this also applies to the drive disc set, Puffer Electro, as you should only be farming this domain if you are building a fire DPS agent. But if you are building one, please do not neglect your Pin pieces, because while they may not be best in slot for many carries, they still work on them. And that is the most important thing when it comes to being efficient for your farming. You can put the Puffer Electro pieces you obtain while farming for the fire set on any DPS agent and it will get the job done. And you will also have pieces that can be passed down to future agents in the game as well, and can be a placeholder until you obtain their best in slot set. So if you do have Puffer Electro pieces laying around, and or Pin ratio main stats, please do not get rid of them, as they can help plug in the holes for your build until you can get the right pieces you need for the other sets. And remember that substats means so much in Zzzero, so if you have an elemental damage 5th slot with really poor substats, but a Pin ratio with great substats, then the chances are your Pin ratio will do more damage, and this is especially true for crit agents. Pin is a stat that has the potential to get better and better as we continue to progress through Zzzzero's new updates, and at a baseline, it is rarely ever the best for most agents, but that does not mean it's not a fine replacement and a solution for any character looking to increase their damage, especially if we can stack it as high as possible for more defense shred. But Pin ratio is still slightly different from the defense shred from a character like Nicole, as Pin ratio and the defense shred that Nicole provides are calculated separately. To understand how these multipliers work, I highly recommend checking out OKMuzi's video on Pin if you haven't already. In this video he explains the multipliers and damage formula very clearly, and is overall a great watch in my opinion, so I'll leave a link to his video in the description below. But we cannot talk about Pin without mentioning Rina. Rina is a character that I and many others have ridiculed for quite some time now, believing that she was quite overrated at the beginning of the game. But fast forward to today, and as of time of recording now, I believe Rina is actually the most underrated and underappreciated support in Zzzero. And this comes from numerous talks with other theory crafters, testing her myself on a wide variety of my own viewers account, all with different levels of investment, and seeing it firsthand just how useful Rina can actually be. And with others like EOD Gamer leading the charge, I genuinely believe it is about time we put some respect on Rina's name. I would like to firstly debunk the biggest myth about Rina, and that's she needs her M1 to be good. This is not true for a few reasons. In Zzzero, you have an indicator below your health bar that shows your buff uptime, and due to Rina being able to reapply her buff so quickly through either a couple auto attacks, evasive assist, or her EX special, you can quite literally get in a rhythm with her and have no uptime issues at all with her buffs, as this style of gameplay is more quick swap based. And with the fluent animations and Rina's ease of use, this playstyle is not only extremely easy to learn, but also get used to. Rina's M1 is more of a quality of life than a necessity, and it just means you have to switch into her less often. But unlike a character like Nicole, where her buff is dependent on her energy field, Rina's buff is transferred directly to her teammates, and this further enhances how comfortable Rina is to use. But some of you may ask, But doesn't Nicole give a bigger buff than Rina? Yes, she does, but Rina teams can still sometimes clear faster than Nicole. But how is that possible if she's giving a smaller buff in most situations? It basically comes down to two things: damage thresholds and opportunity cost. When you use a support agent's abilities, these abilities take time to cast, and depending on how many times you have to cast their abilities throughout the fight, will add up in the end how many extra seconds got taken off the timer due to using these abilities. So it comes down to how many times your supports have to reapply their buffs to finish off an enemy. For this next example, we can use Yuan. If we had two Yuan teams and both had qingyi, but one has Nicole and the other has Rina, if your Yuan can clear the boss in one stun window on both teams, with an equal number of shots used, the Rina team will be faster due to Rina needing less time to reapply her buffs than Nicole. However, if your Yuan is not as invested, and the extra damage you receive from Nicole makes the difference for your Nicole team to clear in one stun window compared to Rina's now two, then Nicole will be significantly faster. And if we look at the CN list that shows the average speed of teams clears in the past Xiyu defense, we can see this is actually the case, as Yuan had the third fastest overall team with Nicole and qingyi, while the team with qingyi and Rina fell to the ace spot. Well, this does mean for most players, Nicole's extra damage was the difference to make the clear faster. But tell me, have you noticed something about this list? Rina's team with Elle and Joe actually has the number 1 overall spot, and Rina also appears 4 times in the top 10, while Lucy, Nicole, and Sokaku only appear 2 times each. But how did Sokaku's team not even make the top 10? It goes back to opportunity cost. Yes, Sokaku can buff Ellen's raw damage the most of any support in the game currently, but Sokaku has extremely long animations and also takes significantly longer to reapply her buffs for Elle and Joe compared to Lucy, and especially Rina. And this also applies to a character such as Jane Doe as well, as even if you were to do slightly less damage with Rina and Jane, if the damage you get from another support does not push you past the needed damage threshold, and your Jane still needs the same number of assaults to finish off the enemy, then this will still make Rina the fastest clearing team for Jane. So overall, what does this mean for Rina? The more invested your DPS agents are, and the team as a whole, the better Rina will perform. Rina's biggest strength is not her overall DPS increase she can provide for a team, but rather her low opportunity cost and team versatility. Our current in-game content that gets updated so far is the Xiyu defense, and the most important thing in the Xiyu is clear speed, because the whole time you are against a running clock for an S-rate clear. If we were to just look at Rina's damage buffing potential, we would see in some cases she can actually rival her peers and be competitive, but in most cases she will fall short in that area overall. So I can understand why many people believe she is the worst support in the game. But when I started factoring clear speed and opportunity cost, I started seeing Rina in a new light. Sokaku is the best overall damage buffer for Elle and Joe, but time and time again I get better clears with Rina. And I personally don't think Rina is bad with Juyen, but I still prefer Nicole. But outside of Juyen and maybe Nekomata, I don't prefer Nicole over Rina on any other team. So overall, in my honest opinion, after hours and hours of testing and discussing Rina with many people I highly respect in the space, I personally think Rina is the best universal support in the game currently, at the time of recording, as I would only choose Nicole and Lucy over Rina in a few specific teams. And unless your Elle and Joe is just really low investment, Rina just feels better to me over Sokaku right now. 10 is a status better than most people give it credit for, and Rina is significantly better than I used to believe. Now honestly, I don't know how well Rina will age in Zzzero as the months pass, and we eventually receive more updates with new support agents. By this time next year, my opinion on Rina could once again change, and no longer think she's that great overall, but at the same time, she could also age like fine wine, depending on how they decide to use Pen for the future characters coming to the game. So only time will tell, and until then, this is my current opinion on Rina, and I'll wait for some significant changes to happen within the game before my next update on her. But let me remind you all that I'm doing a Caesar King giveaway if we can hit 5,000 subs before her banner, so be sure to subscribe for more ZZZ content. And check me out on Twitter at Kid7th and join the Discord for future giveaways. And as always, my name is Kid7th, and with that, I'm signing out.